Again, it's Tuesday, November 4th. I'd like to call a Park and Rec meeting order. Please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any changes to the agenda, Chad?
There's not. Just so everybody knows, Ginger had a puppy emergency that she had to deal with tonight, so I am pinch hitting for Ginger tonight. So.
Okay. I'd look for a motion to adopt agenda.
So moved. Second.
Made the motion. Tim? Bernie? John? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. I look for approval of the October 7th, 2025 minutes.
Move to approve the minutes. I'll second it.
Motion made by John, second by Bernie. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Public comment.
If you could just provide your name and address before you give comment, that'd be great.
Diane Montgomery, 62 West Good Street in London. My concern has to do with Hatton Park, and I would like for you to consider putting up some sort of trail markers that indicate where you are in the park and in the event of emergency. Just before Halloween, I had to call. Luke was out at a training, and this gal in the office put me through to the police department, which I would have called them anyhow, because there was someone who had started a fire in the park way in the back corner. They apparently started a tree burning, and the cop, when he came, said that he seemed to think that an accelerant was used on it because there wasn't any signs of a fire. But it still leads me to, since I hike in the park a lot, the need for signage to indicate where some of these things, these trails are, so in an emergency, we can get help there faster. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Heather? Seeing there's no more public comment. Chad, you want the potential capital projects presentation?
Yep, I will jump into that real quick. We have a PowerPoint that Ginger put together that I will go through. Share here. All right, so this is the 2026 capital project budget. So for equipment and projects, Luke is here from the Parks Department as well to answer questions. Again, just like anytime when we start to talk about capital budgets, equipment and projects, this is a list of everything. We know that we cannot afford to, do all these things. But we'd rather get everything on a list so we're aware of it and we know about it, and not that an older person or someone, for a resident from the public, comes by and said, well, how come you're not doing this? Well, at least it's on the list and people understand that we've been thinking about it. But obviously, we're not saying that we can approve everything that's on the list. And these things will be added to the capital projects overall city list that the capital projects committee will review and then focus on priorities from there. So real quick, just to talk about equipment, and again, Luke's here to kind of talk about this, but Ginger's got on her radar replacement of the SandPro, Toro SandPro. This is for prepping the ball diamonds. Luke, do you want to take a stab at how many hours per week that in the height of the season that we're prepping ball diamonds for all the softball and baseball we have going on? Lots of hours.
Yeah, per season, it's well over 200 hours a season.
Yeah. So a big need, very popular, the baseball and softball games that we have going on. So this is one of the things that we have for prepping those fields. She's also got a list on the list for replacement for one of the trucks that we have, plow truck that we use for many of the parking lots, like the pool, senior center here, police department, library, things like that. So a replacement plow truck. Current one is a 2014, so we're looking at a 12-year-old truck, and that 12-year mark is when we start talking about the replacement time for, trying to get a decent resale value yet, getting things replaced before they start hitting a lot of maintenance needs, and make sure that we've got good equipment for our needs. So this is something that's on the list right now for replacement. Going into the projects, this is something that you've seen in the past for several years now. Replacement of the cabinets and countertops of the Washington Center, the laminate's starting to come off in certain areas, and they're definitely used. I can't remember when the Washington Center was remodeled, but well before my time here, and definitely used on a daily basis between the Meals on Wheels program and the Senior Center program. So this has been something on the replacement docket for a while now. Ginger has applied for some funding out there, has not been successful with that for grant funding, but we'll continue to do that. But again, it's on the list to see if, if the opportunity comes forward either with a grant or if we got to break down and do it ourselves, it's on the list. At the Aquatics and Fitness Center, several things that she's got identified. Upgrades to the camera system. We do have a camera system that's dated. So to upgrade that system, we've got cameras in the weight room and outside and in certain areas. So we don't need staff in every location. We can kind of view those from the office. So upgrade to the camera system. Another thing would be the ADA lift. We have 3 lifts over there now. We just replaced one, if you recall, recently. She's going to be looking at applying for some grant funding through the Community Foundation and try to get some more funding for that. But the ADA lifts are necessary for us to keep in good working condition for those who need it, need the accessibility in the pool. And then she's also got replacement of the pool slide platform and steps. And she's got a picture there and 2 other pictures to show the condition of that platform and steps. Many years old. And obviously kids are walking on this barefoot. So it's probably something we need to be looking at replacement sooner than later to continue the use of the slide there. Other capital projects include Memorial Park. We Memorial South in particular. We have a lot of use in the baseball and softball fields at both Memorial, Pfeiffer, and Hatton Stadium. So this project would include substantial amount of fill, kind of just getting a good refresh to the diamond there, replacement of holes. Luke has had his staff work out and put topsoil and other things out there for fill. So that'd be a project to kind of rejuvenate Memorial South. And then over at Pfeiffer South, again, another replacement project over there for using fields at that point. These are projects that, I don't remember if she put that in there yet, but these are projects that hopefully have some feasibility in partnerships with our softball, baseball, and maybe even the school district. We have to have those conversations further, but these are the total cost for these projects, but hopefully there's some cost sharing or partnerships that we can work on with some of these projects. We've been working on upgrading our bleachers. We've done them over at Memorial Park. We've done several at Pfeiffer Park. These would be updating them with ADA accessible bleachers and just the safety of it. The old style bleachers are 5-tier bleachers. There's no backing on the back, so someone could fall over the back if they lean back. The new style has fencing in the back just for safety, and then it's got the ADA accessible stairwell that's integrated in the bleachers for mobility accessibility. So we've been working on slowly replacing the bleachers at some of the more heavily used parks that have more attendance in fans watching the game. So she's looking at a replacement of the bleachers. Memorial Park, another project would be replacing the playground. That playground is very small currently and very old. This would be an option to bring in additional playground set to that park. It does get used quite a bit. I mean, during the baseball and softball season, there's a ton of different activities and usage going on. So it would definitely be another park to see some good usage with new playground equipment. Again, maybe a capital fundraise campaign for Memorial Park upgrades could be done, or grants, or maybe some partnerships with some of the local clubs that are there as well. But looking at a $75,000 upgrade there as well. This one would be finishing off the trail system that she started with the grant. So this past year, Ginger worked on a project to upgrade the parking lot and the overflow parking lot that was just west of the Water Supper Club. And also the grant helped finance the trail section from that parking lot to the boat launch. This project would be continuing that trail from where it was left off at the Old City Garage site or the overflow parking site, all the way to Shawano Street. You can kind of see the path there. If we would continue with a concrete trail like we did with the first section or phase one that we did, which has been, we've gotten some really good praise and some good feedback from that. If we continue that with another concrete trail, we're looking at another cost of $150,000-ish. But hopefully there's some grant funding available that we could work on with recreational trails program. So again, we're just identifying the need, identifying the cost, and hopefully there's some grant funding that we could take advantage of to help us with that project. Another project that she's kind of got her eye on, if you can envision the Hatton Shelter. We haven't done much with that Hatton Shelter in a while, and it's a very popular and well-used shelter house for graduation parties, birthday parties, family reunions. This would be to spruce up the south side of the shelter house. She's seen a couple of these options where they maybe put gas fire pits in front of the shelter house, and just with different lighting systems. Maybe just make it a little bit more placemaking style inviting at the shelter house. So again, she's working on what that would look like. I think she talked about bringing that game plan to this committee before we move forward with it. But she wants to kind of put it as an earmark in the capital projects list. And then hopefully there's another opportunity for grant funding for that project as well. Oops. And then tennis courts. I think we really have talked about, we need to start looking at our tennis courts and how we want to work on those improvements. Tennis courts are, all of our tennis courts, Hatton Park, Abraham Park, Pfeiffer Park, are in desperate need of upgrades or replacements. Most of them are in need of just replacements at this point. But this would be for adding on a list, and it sounds like Abraham Park right now is probably the worst one out of the three to consider for some upgrades to replacement of the tennis courts there. This would just be a placeholder for that. I think there is a need for us to have a conversation again with the school district to see if there's some partnerships available with that before we move forward with this. I'm going to be talking to Ginger and probably Bob and the mayor to see how we want to approach that. But I think before we move forward with any actual plans, I think we got to start going back to the school district and having that conversation again to see what the partnerships and needs are from there. So again, this would just be a placeholder in that site for now. And that's all she had on her list. So any questions? I kind of went through real quick. And again, Lucas here kind of talked about a little bit more of the park and the equipment things.
Did she mention anything about the splash pad? I mean, that was brought up a couple of times about having a splash pad.
Mhm.
Did she mention it? She hasn't said anything to me.
No, she didn't have anything on this list about splash pad, but are you talking about upgrades to our current splash pad or new splash
A
pad?
new one. Maybe there were a couple different spots. One of them is over by the pool there in that little hollow down there. That was one of the spots was mentioned, and there was one other one. I don't remember where that one was. But,
I think that was another Spark project, wasn't it?
but yeah, that could have been on that list. Yeah, I think that was.
We've had a lot of conversations, been some families who have been interested in maybe donating towards that. So there's been talk, but we haven't narrowed in on a park, a location, a project, a cost as of yet. But I think that's still in the docket to continue talking about. I haven't really looked at, and maybe we can talk about it more as we talk about the court plan that we're going to talk about next. I know in some of the past surveys that we've had, a splash pad has been very popular as a requested item. But yeah, she doesn't have it on this list, but doesn't mean those conversations can't continue.
I think she was, working with a family that was really interested in something that came to town for baseball tournaments and stuff like that, kind of like, on on the mindset of, well, if you're gonna have a large group of people, so that was the first thing that came to my mind when she had the wish list there for Memorial Park playground upgrades.
Mhm.
I don't know, I know that's a place where there's not a lot of room, but if we're gonna be redoing restrooms and some plumbing and some other major upgrades at Memorial Park, maybe that would fit into that, and maybe that family would be on board with something to think about,
Mhm.
That's the first thing that popped up on, if you're gonna redo a playground like that, maybe look at what neighboring communities have done close to their recreation fields and piggyback off of, maybe there's a way to incorporate the two together in that design, that at a place where hundreds of families come for ball tournaments every weekend, and grandma and grandpa are there, watch in between games, they could take the other kids over. It doesn't have to be a big Wisconsin Dells type thing, but something to think about.
Mhm.
But I know that we have talked about that, and there's a family willing to contribute some funds for it. So.
Anybody else have any comments?
One thing that I guess kind of grabs me is we sent out that mailer and we had that little Washington Center committee where the public came in and talked about it. And it seemed like that pickleball was something that
Mhm.
had a lot of interest.
Yep.
And to me, that's where that Abraham Park, I mean, you got a nice facility there, underused. I think that's something that we should seriously look into.
I don't know
I
so
think-
much about Abraham Park, but I drive by Hatton every day and there's somebody on there every day in the summer playing
Mhm.
tennis. So, I mean, I don't know, Abraham's kind of out there. I don't know how often that one gets used, but I would focus more on Hatton.
I mean, I work in Appleton and over at Tulip Park, it is amazing how many people are there on a daily basis playing pickleball.
Mhm.
It's crazy. I know Appleton's way bigger, but I think it's something that we need to look into someplace. That's what we're being pushed and asked for. I think that it's one thing that's gonna stick on my mind as we go through this.
Ms. Clone?
I was gonna say, maybe don't do 2 tennis courts over there, do a tennis court and a pickleball. But I agree, I think pickleball is really huge.
Well, I think some of these conversations are leading us straight into our next topic with our core plan. So not to kind of push you guys along, but any other questions that?
That's fine. There was one thing that stuck to me before I came here. I'm like, better be something about pickleball on there because that's what we're getting pushed quite a bit about.
Yep. And that's why we do a core plan for planning. So.
One
I
thing this is kind of obscure, but Abraham Park is so large and like half of it's not being used.
Mhm.
Has there ever been thought of sectioning it off and selling it for housing? I mean, you could put in, I don't know, probably 10 homes on that land and it'd make the city some money. We wouldn't have to maintain it, wouldn't have to mow it.
Mhm.
I mean, half of that park does not get used. So just something.
That has not been a conversation. So.
I just want to weigh in on the pickleball real quick. I have had a lot of different people come to me about that, and they are saying that they are leaving town to play pickleball. So just an FYI.
Anybody got anything else? Well, Chad, you want to jump into the comprehensive?
You bet. And actually, we have Carmen Ebert from East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. As you are well aware, we worked with East Central to help us develop our corp plan. And Carmen's here to kick it off. So I'm going to put the ball in your court there, Carmen.
Hi, everyone. So again, my name is Carmen Ebert. I was the main staff at East Central that was in charge of the New London Comprehensive Outdoor Rec Plan update. Really enjoyed working on the plan, had a lot of fun doing the park inventory. And I actually will touch on some of the comments that you folks just made about pickleball and splash pads as well. So bear with me for a moment. I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to do a really quick overview. The document itself is 80 plus pages, so I'm not going to, focus on every single page. But I do want to just go through kind of how it's laid out. So bear with me for a moment here. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So let's see. Oh, no, sorry. Thought I could make it a little bit bigger, but how about that? Can you see that?
Looks good.
All right. Okay, so again, this document is about 80 or so pages long. We start off with the introduction. So let me scroll down. The introduction gives some background about the purpose of the plan. It also goes over the plan process. So we kind of break it up into 4 phases: a needs assessment, goals and opportunities, a strategy and action plan, and then metrics and values. So essentially the adoption process, which my understanding from Ginger is that the plan will not be adopted this evening. It's just, a review of the plan, and the committee will look at it again in the December meeting for adoption. Is that correct?
Yes, since we just obtained this last week, so to give the committee and then everyone else an opportunity to look at it, provide feedback, I would suggest that, probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks, if anybody has feedback, reach out to Ginger so that she can relay that to Carmen and East Central, that they can, if there's any changes, that they can make those changes, and then this would be presented again at the December Parks and Rec meeting for final adoption and recommendation to City Council for the final adoption in December.
Great. So the introduction chapter, it does give a summary of the community engagement efforts. We did hold a community visioning session, which was very successful. We also held a farmers market pop-up event, which also was very successful, got some great feedback with both of those. The introduction chapter also gives a summary of past planning efforts that have been done in the New London area, as well as the state of Wisconsin. We also have a small section, just physical and social characteristics of New London, and some quick facts about population growth, housing, jobs and economy, etc. We also have several maps. I'm not sure what version you guys got, but within the last 24 hours, our GIS team actually flipped the maps to be landscape. This is because it's much easier it's more zoomed in, so you can see more of the details of the maps this way. I know it's kind of hard to see on the screen because it's sideways, but if you actually have a printed off copy, it's much easier to see the maps in the landscape format. So. All right, so chapter 2 went over recreational resources. So we did do inventory. I apologize, my husband and my daughter are in the background. So if you hear some squealing, my 1-year-old daughter is making some noise. But recreational resources, we did do an inventory of existing park facilities. We did categorize them into different types. So we have 3 community parks, 3 neighborhood, 4 mini parks, 4 green spaces / conservancies, and then also the special facilities and recreation centers. And so the park inventory, we go through each individual park and kind of list the major amenities that each one has to offer. In addition to that, if we scroll down further, we have the parks matrix. We also list the schools here just as an FYI, in case there's like future partnerships with the schools. But our park matrix kind of shows those amenities laid out in a table format, so it's easier to see. We also did an inventory of the existing bicycle and pedestrian facilities. So summarized, the miles of paved trails versus unpaved and sidewalk. We just had a little section about the existing natural resources as well, which we have maps that reflect those. So we have a bicycle and pedestrian facilities map. And then we also have a map laying out those natural resources within the community. Chapter 3 goes over the recreational needs. So we did a needs assessment based off of the population, existing facilities, accessibility, etc. And I'm not going to go over the population trends, but we do compare, the city of New London to similar sized cities within the state of Wisconsin, as well as the counties, both counties that the city is located within. And we just have some information from the Wisconsin Outdoor Rec Plan. So you can always refer to that if you want to read into that further, just about trends within the state of Wisconsin. We did a systems assessment looking at parkland demand, city of New London compared to similar sized communities. So number of residents per park and acres of parkland per 1,000 residents. So you can see that the amount of acres that the city has per 1,000 residents is above the upper quartile, so that's great. And also number of residents per park is low, which is, again, great. You have more parkland available per resident, essentially. We also have this map, residential areas served by a park. So we're looking at basically residential areas within the city that are located within walking service area of at least one park. If you look at the legend, essentially the orange area, I'm struggling to see it, but the orange areas here are kind of those areas of New London, the city of New London, that are disconnected in terms of being within a service area, walking service area of a park. So kind of those are our areas that, if you're looking into purchasing property for a new park, that would be where you should potentially consider serving those underserved neighborhoods. We also did, an accessibility assessment, making sure that our playgrounds are inclusive, our trailways are inclusive. A health assessment was also included. Now getting into community voice, I did touch upon the fact that we had a couple in-person engagement events, but we also did some online engagement, which included an online survey. The online survey generated 171 responses, which was a really great response. We got some really great feedback. In the interactive map that we included on the, it's called Social Pinpoint, it generated 41 responses. And it was really great because the user could click on a specific area and say, add tennis courts here, or this trail needs maintenance in a specific area. Again, the in-person engagement events were very successful. The community visioning session, we had some really great feedback. So there's just some visuals of the in-person engagement that we had. And then we go into our survey results. So we have figures or quotes from almost every single question from the survey. Again, I'm not going to, go through each individual, but there were lots of trends that we had noticed. Overall, the satisfaction of the quality and condition of the parks, weighted average is 2.29. 1 being does not meet expectations, 4 being exceeds expectations. So a little below that average. And also they noted that the quality of programs, recreation programs, has been pretty steady in recent years. But some of the trends that I was referencing, splash pads, of course, that's something that's in high demand. And then pickleball courts. That was another item that was in high demand. But of course, you can, go through these results at your leisure. But it kind of summarizes, what the community members think are priorities within the area. So I'm going to keep scrolling through these survey results until we get to our goals and recommendations. Our goals and recommendations included, there we go. Goals and recommendations, we have 3 primary goals. Goal 1 being improving the condition of the existing park and recreation sites by upgrading infrastructure, enhancing maintenance, and improving accessibility. And then there's objectives for goal number 1. Goal number 2, offer diverse recreational opportunities that highlight New London's natural resources and support the outdoor recreation tourism. And then goal 3, expand and revitalize vacant or underutilized lands into parks, trails, and open spaces. So the plan recommendations goes more in depth for each goal and objective. So, objective 1, you guys kind of touched on this earlier, improving your ball diamonds, the accessibility of the facilities for spectators and for players. Another thing that we saw in the community engagement is lack of connectivity of the trail system. So there are some recommendations to, build a bridge to connect some trails or, provide some more accessibility for the underserved areas of New London. So I'm going to scroll down into our action plan. So the 5-year action plan, let me get to it really quick here. So our 5-year action program or action plan, it lists each park or facility, and it has specific actions, for lack of a better term, that we received feedback from the park staff. So a lot of this actually reflects what you had just presented with your capital improvements plan. And so, for example, the New London Aquatic Fitness Center, we have the pool lifts in here as one of those actions. Hatton Park, improved drainage, and also, I believe the tennis courts on here as well. Abraham Park, improve upon the tennis courts. One thing I'll mention, you guys were talking about pickleball courts. There is a way to actually do a dual surface or paint the line so it could be used for tennis or for pickleball. So that might be a consideration, and I believe that's listed in here as well. A consideration is to make a dual purpose court instead of strictly tennis or strictly pickleball. So a lot of actions here, and we included, above and beyond, we included everything we possibly could think of that is a need for that specific park or facility. Having said that, it doesn't hold you to this specific activity. However, it does allow for you to be eligible for grant funding, having that action listed specifically. So if it's not listed in the corp, you may not necessarily be eligible for grant funding to do that specific action. So that's why we have a lot of, a lot of actions here in our 5-year action plan. After the action plan, we have a list of recommended grants. So we can have it broken up. There's the DNR Nelson Stewardship Grants. We also have federal recreation grant programs. And then we also have, a list of more DNR ones, but we also have some local grant or local community grant programs, more specific to Wisconsin or some more unique opportunities. For example, there's the skate park project where you can apply for funds specifically to improve upon skate parks. So hopefully this is a good resource for you folks when you would like to apply for grant funding for something listed within the corp. Lastly, just chapter 6 is that resolution of adoption, which we will get hopefully in the month of December, and we'll add that in there. So that is what I have for you folks. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Anybody have any questions for Carmen? Guess we don't have any questions. Thank you for the presentation.
Absolutely, not a problem. I will stop sharing my screen.
Okay, thank you.
And I would suggest that
problem.
everybody take the opportunity to kind of look through that over. If anybody from the public wants to see it, if you see the Parks and Rec agenda for tonight's meeting, there's a link on there that you can download the entire packet. It's a big file, obviously, but you can download that link and look at it yourself. Again, if anybody has any questions or comments, suggestions, reach out to Ginger, I would say in the next couple of weeks, so that Ginger can communicate with Carmen and then again, bring back a final document to the December meetings.
Okay, thanks again.
Great, thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks, Carmen.
Park program, Chad.
Wonderful. So many of you were probably at the Economic Development Committee meeting. Obviously, not everyone was there, but I'll just quickly go through again the SPARK program. Another program through Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, some other individuals in the office. And again, it stands for, let's see, Strategic Planning and Revitalization for Communities. So it was a one-day workshop that East Central provides, that they bring in a professional landscaping and engineering survey. This year it was Ayers and Associates. They came in. We started the morning with a FYI, just information. There was some survey information about, what's going on in New London, and specifically talking about some of the target areas that we were looking at for this project. Then we went on some site surveys in the downtown, walked through the downtown to give the consultants a little bit more information. They took the afternoon to provide some ideas for us to consider in the future, and then they presented this program. So again, our area of consideration, I'm not going to go through the entire thing because it's in the packet, was in our downtown district. This has been talked about as a placemaking project for a little while now. We've talked about how we can improve on the area that's in between State Farm Insurance and Longevity Fitness. We've got some property that the city owns in between Longevity Nutrition and Wolf River Pub. And then just how do we tie that in with the entire downtown? There's been numerous studies about the downtown, and one of the things that continually come back that I've seen in some of these studies is how can we tie the river in better with our downtown businesses and our downtown? And so that was one of the concepts that we're talking about. How can we tie the assets of the Wolf River in with projects in our downtown? So initially they looked at just traffic patterns. They're looking at where cars come in, cars come out, where pedestrian movement can be. So they looked at a holistic pedestrian vehicle traffic patterns in the downtown first. Then they started drawing, and all this is putting ideas on paper. They started talking about different ideas, different paths for people to move. Not every concept that they came up with is obviously feasible. Their point was, we're going to put everything on this document that we can think of just for spurring ideas. One of them example would be to put a pedestrian bridge across the two parks from the Berninger Riverwalk to St. John's Park. Probably not, would it be a great thing? Sure, but probably not feasible when we have a bridge that's less than a half a block away that still can provide the same pedestrian access to either side of the river. But they put it on there just to make people think of what possibilities are. And then specifically in the area by State Farm Insurance, Longevity Nutrition, Wolf River Pub, and this is the area where potentially the new beer garden site would be. They kind of came up with some ideas from the conversations that we had and the tours, on-site tours. We talked about how can we tie the river in better? Well, with pedestrian access, with the businesses in here. Well, to do that, one of the things would be, because currently there's roadway that runs through here. An idea would be to discontinue the roadway through here and provide more pedestrian accommodations from the businesses to the river, make it a more of a riverfront feel. Different, and you can tie in different themes of concrete, different mixtures of concrete color. One of the things they talked about was the river and how the river flows. So they conceptually put in some, meandering sidewalks to give it a nature-based meandering feel throughout the system. So we kind of gave up some different themes or different ideas with that. Parking was definitely something we wanted to consider and continue. We do need parking in that area. One of the things they kind of conceptualized was maybe a circle drive. Instead of driving through here like it is today, maybe it's a circle drive that we continue to have some parking availability. We still have some parking availability along the buildings on either side, but discontinue the drive, hypothetically, that goes to Smith Street here. We would need a section of Smith Street to continue because there is the driveway here that's going to the new SC Swiderski apartment complex. We want to retain that. But we also have an alley here. There's an alley that runs behind Longevity Nutrition and Wolf River Pub. And we talked about what are the ways we can use it in both the capacity for vehicle access, for deliveries and things like that, but also create it in a sense that it doesn't block off the areas that are in this location. So conceptually, one of the ideas was to allow this vehicle traffic, and this would have to be changed a little bit to allow vehicle flow through here, but maybe it's an opportunity that we allow vehicles to travel that area, that the alley, in the mornings when they need deliveries or other things. But in the afternoons and the weekends, maybe this is closed off and it's more pedestrian accommodations so that you can still safely tie in pedestrian accommodations and pedestrian travel between maybe this new pocket park, this new riverfront alley scenario type thing here. There might be some opportunities for multi-use, but then we close off the different areas for different time of day use. We talked about the opportunity for, creating an area where this could be for a little bit of the event space, whether it's farmers markets, whether it's, concerts and things like that. So multi-use and connecting the riverfront to local businesses down here. So just some ideas that were thrown out there. This is all conceptual. The next steps would be to actually hire a consultant, which we've talked about, maybe putting that in our capital project and improvement planning in the future. Because, for example, maybe the circle drive doesn't fit. It looks like it fits on paper right now, but that was just kind of thrown there as an idea. We would have to engineer all this stuff to make sure all this stuff works and fits, and then refine what actually goes on in this area. The Spark Day workshop also talked about how do we tie in other parks in the downtown. So maybe there's some different themes and some different looks that correlate between St. John's Park, Taft Park, Anchor Park here, and the new Pocket Park opportunity in between Longevity Fitness and Wolf River Pub. So you can kind of see some ideas of how Anchor Park could look in the future with some hanging lights and moving lighting around and some seating in here for informal gatherings, but also tying in some of the different themes with the potential new pocket park that the city owns several acres of land here between, or several parcels of land here between Longevity Fitness, Longevity Nutrition, and Wolf River Pub. So just how we tie in those areas together, whether it's signage, whether it's the different, the similar seating areas and things like that. But just a one-day workshop, an envisioning workshop, just to kind of give us some ideas of what could be done in the future. So I will stop talking. Are there any questions with that?
I think a lot of this is going to be in coordination with the economic development.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us, instead of all being in the park, it's probably going to end up a lot with the economic development. Because they're so close together.
I think it ties into both. I think it ties into economic development because there's economic development opportunities for doing things like that and drawing people to downtown. But ultimately, it's park space as well. And it's going to be our park crew. Sorry, Luke, our park crew that manages and maintains things like this. So there's going to be opportunity for both worlds to have input and collaborate and come together on any type of final outcomes.
Anybody got any questions for Chad? Linda?
No questions. Great presentation, Chad. You kind of summarized everything very well from what was presented at economic development as well. And I agree with Robert. I think there is an opportunity here with the placemaking to work with Park and Rec, and I think we all got to get together. And the first thing that we've got to figure out is doing that engineering design for that area, because that's the first thing that has to happen before we can do any grant requests. We got to know what we're looking at. So I think that's kind of the next steps, whether that's the Economic Development Committee or Parks and Rec or whoever's doing it, or a combination of the two. But that's where we need to go.
Anybody else have anything else? Director's report.
I will do my best to summarize Ginger's report. I'm just going to kind of look briefly through her memo that you have in your packet. The new pillars, I know that they're in the downtown. They were installed. We're waiting to work with New London Utilities to actually put the lights on top. So it's kind of cool to finally see those pillars that are put up to kind of decorate that entrance to the new parking lot in the downtown. So I'm really excited to see what it looks like once the lighting is up on top. Ginger put some information in her packet regarding the Memorial Park bathroom project. We do have some money on the city side set away for some improvements, specifically for the sanitary sewer system, getting that pumped up to the street. She's got some information here, and she's been talking to Robert, talking to McMahon, and talking with Softball Association about possibilities. Sounds like now, if you recall, the Softball Association was targeting maybe doing a new bathroom facility there. Sounds like after continued conversations, they're narrowing in maybe an addition to the existing bathrooms that are there, hypothetically. I think there's some more conversations to come, but there's a need for maybe some more facilities there, some improved facilities, but to be determined what those are. But conversations continue with the clubs and consultants. Ginger talks about planters in the downtown. I think they took some of them away, but they want to keep some of them in the downtown. They're going to decorate for the winter season as well. And I know Bob and Robert and Ginger have been talking about getting the next student rep on board. You've been doing some interviews. We're getting our next student representative to the Parks and Rec Committee. And then park staff has just been cleaning things up for the fall, putting things away for the winter, and doing their thing with that. And that's all I got.
Potential agenda items for future meetings.
I think I have to agree with our public comment earlier on a trail system. I think that'd be a low economic value that I think it's something we should look into because of the safety. And if something did happen, if they could be pinpointed to a certain section of that trail back in there, I think we should put that on, Bob.
I definitely thought that was a great idea. Yeah, I did too, and I think that, Bernie, you've had a career in law enforcement and public safety, but I think, Wolf River Trips is the first thing that came to mind. They over the years found they needed something like that in place, and for bringing that up tonight brought that to mind right away. And I think they worked with first responder groups, law enforcement, the fire departments and stuff like that. And they designated certain areas along that whole corridor that they use, even though it's public and private land, but, and it works. When they have an emergency there, and they have several every year, it's easy for people to say section 1 or corridor or whatever. How does that go out there?
They got it off in sections. They got, I don't know, half a dozen spots. When the fire department gets paged out, Wapaka County tells you exactly where the situation is happening. So we ain't running up and down both sides of the road. We can go right to it.
Kind of create a similar
So
system
great.
in not only Hatton Park, but other areas that, you know, it could sprout out from there and it doesn't have to involve a lot of big signage, but you know, just public awareness and stuff. I think it's a great option. We should definitely have that on a future agenda, John.
Yeah, we'll pass that information on to Ginger by far. That's something easily can be done internally. It's signage and planning, conversation with the police department, just the best way to communicate that. But we have opportunities for signage that can be done. So I will definitely pass it on to Ginger to start looking into.
I just want to say that I thought when they were talking about the Hatton Park thing, I also thought about, our other trails, like John had said, other trails, other areas, so that responders can get to people quickly and know exactly where people are.
Excuse me, anybody got any other comments? Look, we'll be continuing our conversation with Sparks.
Mhm.
And the update on the property acquisition for Sparks continuation.
Mhm.
Looks like we'll probably be doing that next meeting, December meeting.
Mhm.
Review our next meeting date, Tuesday, December 2nd. And we're gonna have a joint meeting with the Economic Development. They'll be following us immediately. Anybody got anything else you want to talk about? Pam, you got anything? No? Okay. Okay, then I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by John, second Bernie, second by John. All in favor? Pardon?
Bye.